which leads us to two really nice young gentlemen. Okay, everyone's young when you get to be my age, so they aren't that young, but they're sure a lot younger than me. Michael Sunnarborg and Zach Anderson. I will say, being very familiar with this project, um, the project as a whole, but especially the articulate rise that Zach and Michael worked on, uh, really just kind of brought everything to life. And you could see kind of the client and the SMEs and the stakeholders just really warm to everything. And I constantly remember Michael telling subject matter experts and senior leaders that no, you can't do 800 things in an articulate course just because you want to. And, we really have to make it user friendly and keep the information to the correct amount. And Zach did just a wonderful job. Michael did development as well, but Zach did a wonderful job bringing the course to life. We're keeping this very generic. Even though it was a Brandon Hall Award winner, we do try to keep customer stuff very confidential. So that is why they aren't showing quite as much as they might normally. But just a real successful course. And I think Michael and Zach will both tell you they had a good time developing it as always, which not as always, which is not always the case. So with that, let's hand it off to Michael and Zach to open your eyes with Articulate Rise.
Here we go, right? If you're awake, time to wake up. Good morning, everyone. Actually, good afternoon. Well, depending on where you are, it might be a good morning. But wherever you are, I hope it is a good start for you today. And yeah, so thanks for the warm up there, Jay. This was really an interesting project for us. And it was because it was an interesting situation. And I'll just kind of jump right in because it's going to really give you an idea why we did what we did. So the background was the client came to us in the early summer of 2020 because we had just a few changes in March of 2020. Yeah, just a few changes that forced a lot of things to change very quickly. Obviously, the pandemic hit and everything had to move. Everything had to move to virtual, and it was overnight. Now, you do remember, though, they said on Friday the 13th, 2020, this disease or this virus that's spreading, it's the East Coast and West Coast of the US. It started overseas in China. We think, so what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of close everything down, and then we'll have you go home for a couple weeks, a week or two, until we sort this out, and then, we'll all come back to work. So just go home for a couple weeks and go online. And, most people were, well, okay, I'm online doing the web and stuff, so I'm okay with that. Some people were not happy with that or comfortable at all, but we just had to adjust for a couple weeks, right? Yeah. Can you imagine if they would have said, we're having some problems with this disease and this virus that we're not sure what it is. We need you to go home for 2.5 years and work from home. You okay with that? So not only was it a shock, but it was much easier for some than others. And our client, obviously, many of you had very urgent needs that could not stop moving and that needed to go, which is your business, and could not be interrupted by this unknown silent virus. So what was interesting is this client in particular was like, what are we going to do with all of our new hires? Onboarding is our way of bringing them into our company. This is the introduction. This is their first impression. We've hired them. We've spent time and energy, and now we're going to get them to come in our doors. We're going to give them a tour. We're going to have them feel at home and welcome. We're going to be so excited for them to join our company. How do we do that online? Are you kidding? And I think a lot of us ask that question. If you were faced with that, if you were one of those people that was like, okay, I need to turn everything online now, next week. Anyone, just drop in the chat, like, yes, me, yes, I was there. Well, we all were, but a lot of us were frontline, like, okay, you got to flip this next week. And interestingly enough, I was on a project where I was doing live facilitation in classrooms out in New York, on Long Island in upstate New York in February and March. Yeah, I got COVID at the very beginning because I was already out there doing it live. And then what did we do? We had to flip all that to e-learning within a week and online facilitation. So that was extreme for everyone. So back to the client. How are we going to get onboarding? How are we going to get this major initiative that we've always valued, that it's in person, virtual? And how are we going to do it so that it feels seamless to our new employees? Well, that was a big question for everyone, but especially when someone is new to the organization. Meeting people, walking around the building, going to the lunchroom, the water cooler conversations, all the things that we really lost when we went virtual. I still miss water cooler. I mean, that's why I have to go do face-to-face or do virtual hangouts, because I just like the chit chat. I think it's very important. But how are we going to duplicate that whole immersive welcome experience, first impression virtually? So that was our biggest challenge. Now, what we wanted to do was have them make sure that they kept that theme, and they called it radical welcomeness. So not just welcome, but feeling radically welcome. So we had to define that. They had to define, what does that mean? And it meant getting as close to the person as possible, making it as real as possible. So when we looked at all the different types of tools we could use, we also thought about, what are people doing now? They're all going online. So everything is going to be web-based. So right away, we thought, you know what? Let's keep web-based tools. People are already going to be in motion of being online for everything, work. It's just going to be the way it is. So let's just keep them web-enabled. Using Rise, as you know, unless you're new to Rise, is a web-enabled e-learning software development tool that is web-based. So it's much more integrated with links to videos, audio, other websites. You can link it very easily to other web-based content, which keeps you out of the e-learning box and keeps you integrated into a fully integrated web experience. That's why Rise can be so seamless. Now, it does have limitations. Those of you that have used it, you'll know that it's limitations because you're using blocks of templates. But I'll tell you, that can also save you in terms of scope and development, because you can rapid prototype quickly, you can rapid design, and even develop right on the fly in Rise, which is fantastic. And if you want to build that out to more courses and more interactivity, you can drop storyline interactions right in Rise. You can import video, you can import audio, and then you can use some eye candy like custom animations, custom designs, which we did to stretch Rise and make it even more interesting and more interactive than the default templates. So that's what we propose as our solution. We're going to make them feel welcome by keeping them as close to a reality experience as possible, which was online, web-based, but we're going to put in as many people as we can, as much culture as we can, have them feel as close as they can to feeling that radical welcomeness. So what we did is we came up with the idea of going through all the different departments. You know, what do you normally do for onboarding? What does the plan look like? Who are they meeting? Who are they talking to? What are they talking about? All that approach came into our design approach for this project. And we came up with 6 learning modules based on 6 different areas of the company. So different areas of the business that we wanted them to be familiar with on their first day and their first week in. And then, of course, you could go back to the e-learning throughout. But we really had to hit them really hard at the very beginning about really understanding and being aware of the company and how it all comes together in providing them their new experience. So we said, let's include leadership, let's include the managers and employees as much as possible. And then, of course, our favorite question at a project kickoff is, what does success look like? And the director that was in charge of the project said, oh, I want a Brandon Hall Award. And of course, what was my response? Okay. We can do that. Oh, we'll certainly try for it. We laughed about it, but I thought, wouldn't that be fun if we got a Brandon Hall? I mean, really, right? Why not aim high? So we'll see. Yeah, you already know the ending of that story, but it was funny because that was a joke at the beginning. Be careful what you ask for, right? We were listening, and so was Brandon Hall. So that was really the introduction and the background of this. As we're moving on to, I'm going to just pause a couple times here and there because in the virtual world, we can't be as interactive and I can't see your faces. I was laughing yesterday. I was doing a keynote yesterday virtually. And I said, I wish I could see the people who start, like moving or their eyes move or they get something, start gesticulating. And I'm like, oh, what do you got? Those are the ones that hands go up because something's bubbling up. They have an idea, they have a story, they have an example, or they have a question. So since I can't see you gesticulating, or I can't see your eyes go up, or I can't see you nodding your head, if something bubbles up, just put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. I'll stop a couple times. So yeah, just feel free to move about the cabin of the virtual space. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's move on. I wanted to make it easy for everyone, because we were already inundated with a whole lot of change. Okay, the COVID wave hit everyone in terms of just the sheer panic that came with all of this change so quickly. So, the first 6 months of staying home was still difficult because we were waiting to leave and we just had to wait for, almost 2.5 years. So we earned our patience badge, didn't we? Our waiting. But I decided to keep it simple. So I said, let's just follow Addie. And if they didn't know what Addie was, of course, I'm a teacher. So I educate. And as I'm telling people, I teach. If you don't know what Addie is, I told them analysis, design, development, implement, evaluate. I don't assume that everybody knows what I know. So I try to teach while I'm speaking, because then I'm able to make more connections with more people. But Addie was simple because a simple instructional design methodology that actually works well for project management too, especially in creative development or in writing or in training and learning. Addie is really easy to use because it really helps you define your stages. It also helps define stakeholders, your scope, and keeps you on track. So what I did is said, let's just follow Addie. So when we went into analyze, that was really trying to break down a whole company into 6 modules. And as Jay said, I'm like, scope creep, help, how are we going to keep this tight? Because we can't tell them everything. And as we all know, as well, seasoned learning practitioners, people get full very quickly if we overload them with content. I always think sprinkler instead of fire hose, right? Keep your hand on the dial, or what's that called? The faucet, the thing on the hose, so that you're not cranking it up and saying, okay, here's all this thing you need to learn, and you're fire hosing everyone. These are new employees. So I had to coach my training team and the executive teams that were helping me. I said, back, soften your stance. You know so much. This is what you do with the SMEs too. You all know so much, and I value that. So let's start discussing which pieces of every department will be highlighted, but then let's boil it down and then just skim the cream off the top. That's what we're going to teach them. Okay. And most of us all know this in learning and development, but just because we know this, we have to also teach it to our clients. Otherwise, our SMEs and our executives and our teams get really excited and they fire hose us. So it was, okay, bring it back. What are the core essentials? If you had to explain your job, like I asked a department manager, someone who is in a certain HR, if you had to explain your job to your grandmother or your mother, how would you explain what your department does? Because I wanted them to think about, if someone who knew nothing about this needed to know it, how could you explain it? That's what a new employee is going through. They might have previous experience in corporations and know exactly what purchasing does in this company. They might have no clue. So you have to find people where they're at and meet them in the middle. So that was really a balance piece. So I thought, no problem. We'll do that. We got SMEs from each department, each one of the different areas in the 6 courses, where there are basically 6 different areas of the business, the most prominent, divvied up into 6. Sift and sort through important information for those new hires. Again, only what they really need to know, like the first week or month, really high level. And, that was really easy. To get people from the department, the manager and SMEs, to just dial it down. So I was very patient, but I had a lot of calls, weekly calls, 3 days a week with all these different departments. And you got to remember too, we're doing virtual calls. We're doing Zoom. No, we're doing Teams calls. And I wasn't used to using Teams. So I'm in my learning curve. I'm used to using Zoom, and we're on Teams. And I'm thinking, so I'm learning Teams, they're learning Teams, and they're learning how to do group work online virtually. It's only we're starting in like the 3rd month, 4th month since COVID. So people are still finding their feet. They're not really sure. And so it was interesting there too, because just the facilitation of the content analysis was an experience. And putting people in the virtual rooms to do this by Teams was very interesting for all of us, because it was still rather new. And we didn't think we were going to have to be online. We thought we could go back to usual. That became usual very quickly, our new normal. So in that analysis phase, a couple different, sticks in the spokes potentially, but we worked through it. I came up with, I want to make it easy for my clients. I don't want to have them tell me how to do my work. So I came in and said, we're going to do content grids. We're going to take the content, I'm going to grid it out. I'm going to do it live with you. So sharing my screen worked great in virtual. In person, it's harder to share virtually, but I did it on the screen and we did it together. We whittled through the content together. We did storyboarding in PowerPoint, because people can see the content flow. PowerPoint is still, I think, one of the best instructional design tools, especially for Addie, because you can put everything in there and you can show it to them and you can move slides. It actually works really great for storyboarding. So I did storyboarding in PowerPoint. Keep it simple. People want to see things right away. Even though you're working on branding and look and feel in your design brief, you can still mock up examples in PowerPoint faster sometimes than you can do it in Storyline or Rise, although we got there eventually. But I wanted them to start to see, envision how simple it's going to be. Then design prototyping, and then we did some early eye candy design prototyping. So Zach, what was one of the first, do you remember what was one of the first suggestions we had for some eye candy for them? We had several.
Well, between videos, animations, and GIFs, I think it was GIFs. Yeah, right?
Yeah, something moving on the screen.
Yeah.
Well, it's always an interesting debate when you talk about things moving on the screen, because people are like, oh, they'll be distracted. I'm like, actually, when something's moving, it's not that they're staring at that the whole time. It might catch their eye, but what it does is it keeps that static screen dynamic. So it might annoy some people because they're paying attention to the movement, but what it does is it keeps it alive. It keeps it moving so that it feels like it's living. It really is quite a phenomenon for the brain. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, we're going to get to some of the eye candy stuff, because that was actually the sprinkles on the frosting of the cake of this one, was the little magic pieces we put in. But we had to get to the core stuff first. So that was part of that analysis. So it just simple,
Michael,
yeah.
And I just wanted to say too, like the work you did on the core stuff and in the instructional design, I mean, it made my job so fun. And so I don't want to say easy, because it's still a lot of work, but I do want to say that with that core work done and with the Addie process, by the time we got to design and development and all the eye candy, it was so in place and the content was so there, because as other developers know, a lot of times the most work we spend is just in review fixing content that is baked into things that we make, whether that be videos or animations or storyline interactions. So just wanted to say that. Thank you again.
Right on. Well, yeah. Yeah, and Zach and I really work well together because we think a lot alike. We're both very creative, but we come from very different perspectives. And he comes from more of the inside, behind the curtain, the development pieces, the real core stuff, a lot of the, Adobe stuff. And I come from the instructional design side, the people side, but we put the people and the technology together very well because we communicate very well with each other. So you can really outscope yourself quickly with all sorts of really great ideas, but are they practical? So we kind of breathe in and out with the client about, oh, that'd be fun. However, scope. Oh, that'd be great. Well, we can add some of that. How about just one piece of that? Oh, that's enough. Because sometimes just one thing moving, and we'll show you an example of it in a moment, one thing on the screen that's just a little bit different is enough, right? Too many bells and whistles, and people are paying attention to the bells and whistles and not the content. But a whistle or a bell once in a while keeps people interested. It also shows them that you paid attention to doing something just a little different, which makes them feel more special. Seriously. Okay, so let's keep going to that because I want to get to that stuff because it's really cool. So again, many of you probably have done this with your design. I do a design brief. I really do that with every client, no matter what we're doing. I want them to see templates, colors, a style guide. In essence, even with Rise, and Rise gives you some flexibility. You can upload your own custom fonts and custom colors and images. But what I like about Rise is it forces me to keep it really simple. They've put in some new templates in Rise for the way you can style the opening pages and the internal pages. You can also create your own backgrounds and you can import your own graphics for just images in the background between your chapters as they're scrolling. There's a lot you can do with that. But I wanted to give the client the look and feel because they hadn't done any web-based e-learning either. And I love it because the leader of the group said, let's just do cool stuff. Let's do innovative stuff. And I said, okay, web-based learning. She's like, yeah, we don't have that. I'm like, okay, animations and stuff. Yeah, okay. She's like, let's just do cool stuff because she wanted to keep this company on a leading edge. Not where everyone else is, but just ahead. And everything moving online made it easy to do because now we're doing everything web-based. It just was a perfect timing to try new things. Okay. Little did we know that we'll be trying new things for the next 3 years, and still now we're trying new things. It was a really timely, actually, with COVID there. So we said we're going to use videos. And then we laughed because we're like, well, we'll just use videos. I want talking head videos from senior leaders. I'd love to have the CEO and like the executive vice president of HR. I mean, it's welcome, right? And don't they have a video that they see when they come, or don't they meet them? And they're like, well, not really. And we're like, well, let's give them the radical welcome. I would love the CEO to say, hi, I'm so-and-so, welcome to so-and-so, we're glad to have you here. So we thought about this. Remember, Zach, we're like, maybe we can, because everybody's at home. So I thought maybe we can have a film crew and go out to people's homes and stand in their driveway and interview them. The CEO, the EVP, we're going to interview them and then we'll be able to cut it and produce it and all that. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And then we thought,
yeah,
a little expensive. Yeah, Jay?
Hey, Michael, we have a question from Dave Elsinger. He wants to know if they had an LMS.
Yes. They did. So yeah, so the technical pieces behind that, it was being launched from an LMS, like a traditional course would, but they hadn't done Rise before. So we assured them that you're launching the HTML links and it's, you can do tracking and all those pieces. But yes, they did. We're launching it off their LMS. Mm-hmm. And I can't even remember which LMS it was. This is 3 years ago, because it was just right at the beginning of COVID, but that wasn't an issue. At all. So that was cool. They already had momentum on being able to push out training. But anyway, the cool thing about the design was that we were pushing on the inside of it in terms of the things we could do with Rise, but then we had to deal with the outside constraints of if we want videos, talking heads of people welcoming people virtually, we need to record that. So we came up with a solution because we thought, go to their driveway and record them. We're getting into, okay, we don't have the money for that. We're going way out of scope. So we sat down and decided, Zach had done some video on how to do it-yourself video at home because we were having clients that were sending in video and they wanted talking head video. So how to set up your own home studio with lighting. The sound is a big deal with doing your own video and how to do it with your phone. So we had them do that. So the CEO of the company, the EVP of the company, right, Zach, right?
Yeah, and that was the birth of what I've been doing a lot since the pandemic, which is helping clients figure out how to film themselves and get quality enough footage where we can, because people are okay with Zoom footage. We all understand the limitations that we now have to face with the pandemic and all that. But we, at the same time, we wanted a bit more quality. And so, like I said, yeah, that's been a lot of my my job now for the last 2 years, is helping clients film themselves. So we did some PDFs and then a couple of calls to just talk through it. So
it was really cool. It was cool because it included them, which we wanted to include them anyway, but it also let them learn something new. You're never too old to learn something new, right? Lifelong learners. So we are asking the senior leadership of the company to make their own videos. And they're like, okay, cool. And they did it. And they did a great job. And then we just pulled their video in and just skinned it, with our own little shell and put some customization on it. And then we were digging for treasure in the company. What else you guys have? Whatever assets do you have? They had just before the pandemic, filmed a whole series of employee testimonial videos that they were using from different departments. You bring them on in, let's look at them, let's pull some of those. So we had a whole bunch of employee testimonials they were using that were perfect for welcoming people because they were talking about projects or initiatives or what they really like about the company. Awesome. So those weren't even on their radar until we started having these conversations. So pull them in. So we wanted to make sure it was branded, immersive, and personalized. And then I think I was talking to Jay, you and I were talking about personas and avatars, like, oh, let's suggest that the onboarding team be virtual team members. So instead of, they come the first day of work, hi, I'm Rachel from HR. Here's your packet. Come on with me, your badge. Let's go walk around. Let's have Rachel welcome them in the first module. Hi, I'm Rachel. Welcome to your HR onboarding representative. So the 6 different modules had 6 different avatars. And you can see right here, that's the Rise avatars, Rise characters. But we assigned them to each department and they were your onboarding team. So you had someone assigned to you. Rachel was assigned to you for the first onboarding welcome, which was welcome to the organization. We're going to talk to you about our culture, about who we are. That was your introduction to the company. And you had a face, you had a name, and we even gave her a personality. So each of these, their language was a little different. And that you can see for our DE&I, check the box. We have different gender, race, culture backgrounds, because that's what it is. It's a reality reflection, right? So we really wanted to do that and make it as real as possible.
And Michael, since you called me out, I will just say I'm a real big believer in the avatars, but most of it is based on the at least the evidence-based principle that people learn better with personal agents. And now we call them avatars versus personal agents. But I love that you gave each of the people their own personality. And we've found this in a number of settings, not just in this one, but I know you have. So people, you told this story, Michael, people would join the company and they were looking for these people. They thought the people were real. And that's always a really good sign when people do that. And I want to do one more call out. Zach, Kate Larson asked if you had a handout for making the DIY at home videos. And I don't know that you do or you don't have that, but if you're willing to share, I will get you Kate's email.
Cool. Yeah, we have a ton of renditions of it, so I might have to update it for a more general audience, because that's it's all custom client needs. What do they have or they don't have? So, but I'm happy to send that out after this. Yeah.
Okay, sorry for interrupting, Michael.
Right on. Sorry, are you kidding? This is a group thing. It's like we're a team. Just come on in. And I have a couple more things, then I'm going to pause. So if things are bubbling up, get ready to drop a question or a comment in the chat, because I'm going to be prompting you in about 30 seconds. This is prompt engineering, like ChatGPT. Okay, so branded, immersive, personalized. We also said, oh, let's put in some fun puzzles and games. We're going to gamify just a little bit in each module. And we're like, what kind? Like, I don't know, crossword puzzles, word finds. We're like, have we built those? We're like, no, not really. We'll figure it out. I mean, I don't think we said not really to them. We're like, oh yeah, no problem. And then Zach and I are like, how do we do crossword puzzles? I don't know. Let's figure it out. How do we do a word find? I don't know. Let's figure it out. Just build it. We'll just Google. Someone's got a template out there. We'll just build our own. But that's what we wanted to do. So we'll just do it. We'll make it happen. And then the animated GIFs would be some of the eye candy. So I'm going to pause now. Here's your 30-second call out. What questions, comments, examples are bubbling up for you? And you can come off mute if you want. I mean, you can actually speak if you'd like. Anyone?
Michael Christopher asks, can you share the design brief template too?
Yeah, kind of. I can scrub one for you. Yes, I can't share the original one, but I have kind of a design template for PowerPoint for a design brief that I can certainly provide an example of. Absolutely. Sure. You're welcome, Christopher. Awesome. Yeah, and this brings up a good point, actually. The DIY video sheet, the custom storyboarding and PowerPoint design brief in PowerPoint kind of a thing. You just have to sometimes just make your own tools. And that's great. And they might just be for you. They might be for you and your team. They might be for you and the client. And then in this example here, they might be great tools to share with other teams and other organizations and with, this group. So you never really know where your things are going to end up. But the fact that we create things when we need them, that's the creative process. That's how we come up with new tools and new ideas. You just make it happen. Yeah. I heard someone. Yes? No? Okay. On we go. If you have comments, drop in the chat.
Erica said she'd love to see the scrub design brief too.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that. We can do that. It's my favorite response to anything. Can we do this? We can do that unless it's out of scope. No, we can't do that. I'm sorry. Actually, I have no problem saying no either. And as Jay alluded to, I was working directly with all the senior leadership of the whole company. And I just said, yep, no, yep, no. I just gave it to him directly. I just said, I'm just going to tell you what you can and can't do and what we can and can't do for you, because it just cut to the chase and get to it. And it was a lot easier. And luckily I worked with a team, the director and the consultant I worked with were like, yeah, let's do cool stuff. I'm like, well, we can't do that. We can do this. I said, okay. So it was a matter of just trusting that we were going to be in sync, and we were the whole time.
Hey, Michael, not that we paid David Brown to say this, but he said might be upcoming. Can you demonstrate some interactive parts of the courses?
Wow, what a great segue. We are going to show you some little pieces. We wish we could show you the whole live with the branding and stuff, but you'll get a taste. Yes, in fact, that's just one moment, please. It'll be here shortly. So again, we did 6 RISE courses. We added animations. We did the custom created videos from home. And we created puzzles, games, and interactive scenarios. We're not able to show you the interactive games because they have the proprietary content. But here's an example of this scenario situations we used. They're just the RISE templates, but then we customized all of them. And then, lovely Azelle here would have been representing a department, and Rachel was representing culture, and Bob was representing business. And so we had our avatars that introduced themselves at the beginning of the module, and then Zach will show you how they would pop in and check on you. And then when you get the scenario, they're like, okay, let's practice. And then it's them practicing with you. So there was a consistency of these personas throughout, which again, helped bring that personalized experience and kept it going. And then here's an example of the crossword puzzle. Here's the word search. And Zach, in his magic, made all of these clickable and made them dynamic so that we could actually run them like a real crossword puzzle in a word search. It's pretty.
And they were built in Storyline and then embedded into Rise, which for developers out there, I love Rise because it really is the best of both worlds. You can make specific Storyline interactions as customizable as you want, and then just pop them into the larger template that is Rise.
Yeah, works great. Works great. And then here's an example of how Rachel, introducing the first module, culture, is got some things moving on her. So this is the perfect opportunity for me to hand this over to the magician that is known as Zach Anderson. Mr. Zach.
And Heather, I see your chat question. The crossword puzzles, I did grab a template from the internet, and it had a lot of the Storyline functionality and triggers already built in. So again, scope, I mean, we kept our hours down pretty easily by always researching what's available first, and then, you know, having that inform the design and development.
Yeah. And Zach, I'll just add, Dave Elsinger had asked about any assessments or quizzes. And then I don't think you went through a live element of schedule a Teams meeting with your new manager, but I know there were at least check to understand questions.
Yeah, and Rise, Rise can do all. I love Rise's quiz functionality and quick check your understanding functionalities and templates and blocks. You know, of course, we're going to be honest, you know, there are limitations to Rise. I'm sure you could do things in Storyline that you might not be able to do that I don't even know about, right? Like Storyline just is more customizable, but for the most part, I have yet to see at least a quiz functionality in Rise that is too limited. It's worked for every client we've ever had as far as tracking, you know, different types of questions, multiple choice, fill in the blank. I mean, you really have the whole gambit to choose from. So this is a scrubbed course, obviously not showing all the wonderful stuff we got to include. In fact, it's actually only a small, a little section of it. But I'm just going to kind of, you know, don't mind the text. The text is just here to kind of fill in the blanks and show you some of the language we used. And especially and going back to that instructional design that Michael did. I mean, it's, for me as the developer, it was such a joy to see all this and the the personal aspect of it and the language all there, because again, a lot of my time as a developer is just sitting in review and figuring out with the client, like, yeah, okay, so we did this, like what, you know, this dress or this dress kind of communication. But Rise makes it really easy to just change, especially text. Like you can just go in and change the text right away. It updates automatically. You can make review links if you want your client to only see, you know, a specific, you know, update or like when you update, or you can just give them the share link and they can watch you update it in live time. We usually go with review links just to be more, you know, what's it called? The each step in the timeline of the development, but just want you to know you do have that option. So going through, we start to have these GIFs pop up, and this is where things got interesting. And I realized that, you know, videos you can put in Rise, but videos you have to click play. And, you know, videos, it's a completely different block. It's a block template. Whereas GIFs, they're technically just images. So Rise recognizes GIFs as images, and therefore you can put a GIF in place of an image anywhere an image could go. So we just have some fun, you know, we have the bubble animation, which was so funny that Michael and I, we thought we invented this. And then looked at some of the videos they provided later, and their marketing team already had this. We were like, oh, wait, like, so we clearly were on to their branding immediately, because we were like, you know, reinventing things they already had. But just, you know, and like Michael said, one bell, one whistle, It's not, explosions and, characters flipping, and it's very simple. It's like, as you can see, she doesn't actually move, none of the characters actually move, because that gets into a whole nother bucket of character animation, or or live video in the GIF or whatever. We kept it really simple. But so as you go through the course, and again, ignore the text, but you have quotes, you have people first type images. I love the imagery that Michael focused on. It's no pun intended, it's people first. It is really it's about the people. And you have blocks, that break up each lesson. And then this is where, super fun. You can have the character actually tell you things through text and animation. And here you actually do see, so I have 3 different poses, and I just animate through, again, keeping it simple. I could have made this crazy, the quality out of control, but it was all about just making it more embedded into the course. For example, if you're doing HTML5 coding and creating websites, you have a lot more customizability, and you can do a lot more. I was kind of taking Rise and these GIFs and trying to make it feel as if this was a fully customized website. So it was a lot of fun, and there's a lot of options for different interactivity and animation. And of course, these, I'm not going to go into this in case there's any information we don't want to share. But again, we have so many different options in Rise.
Zach, you're getting all sorts of questions on the GIFs.
Oh yeah, I don't see the chat.
So let me give me a couple of seconds to get back there. Rhonda said first she didn't know you could do GIFs in place of images. That's good to know. And then Julie asked, can you share how you did the movement with Rachel? And then Philip said, what tool did you use to create the animated GIFs? And did you make custom GIFs? And so, boy, you created a lot with your GIFs. And then Melissa asked if there's audio accompanying all the text components, which I know not all the text components. There may be a little audio, but I know that there isn't a lot of audio in this course.
That is actually an interesting question, because at the very beginning, they said, yeah, we want audio narration throughout. You know what I said? No. And they said, why? I said, because in web-based training, you have to launch audio separately. And if you have someone speaking and there's words at the same time, the actual retention level drops significantly because you're doing 2 things at once. Now, that's different than captioning. But having text on screen and narration at the same time is actually counterproductive for learners, they've found. And so I said, no, we're not doing it. And they said, okay, but they fought it a little bit. I said, let's not do it. Not in this case, because we had videos and audio snippets we launched individually instead of narration. Narration can be very cumbersome, and you have to update it. So in other words, sound was a negotiated item, but they wanted narration, and we said no.
Yeah. Zach, do you have a couple of minutes that you could go into GIFs? Do we have enough time?
Of course. Yeah, so I don't think I can actually open up the After Effects and Premiere files just because of proprietary information. But I use Premiere, I use the Adobe Suite, so these characters, I think I remember they're e-learning hero characters, or they're either
these are Rise. They're Rise
characters. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I would export out, the 3 different poses I wanted as PNGs. They're the characters cut out. And then I would put it into After Effects, and I would keyframe it. So, first couple frames, she's here, next couple frames, she's there. And then the last couple frames, she's there. After Effects and Premiere, that whole animation process it's kind of a can of worms. So I'm not going to go too far into the actual process of making these GIFs. but I am totally happy to like maybe make a video or something later and just show how I made one and share that, or maybe a PDF or something after this. So that's kind of going into how I made them move. And then of course, same idea. I have the text popping up at different keyframes. And what other questions? So Premiere, After Effects, Photoshop, those are kind of my tools that I like to use. Custom GIFs. Yep. The characters are, the characters are pre-made. There's a million poses to choose from in a library, which is great to have access to. I think that's actually one bit of this can of worms I will go into is when everyone talks about animation, they forget that there's a whole lot of graphics work that comes before animating. People think you can just get right to the animation, but it's like, what am I animating, right? And what does it look like? So there's a lot of testing and prototyping and actually creating the things I'm going to animate, which is actually a lot of the times the bulk of the work is just figuring out, what is it going to be and what is it going to look like? So then going to audio, yeah, like Michael said, we there's no audio in Rise unless you can put a block in and then the viewer has to click play basically to get audio. But no, I see that you can't in the chat, you can't get audio in a GIF. They are audio-less, silent. But again, I think it's all going back to the scope question and the sustainability question. And, how many times are we going to have to update this in the future? That was a big one we were thinking of. How can we make this, last for a long time? I think that's something with storyline that can get a little challenging when things are so customized. And then 2 years later, the client comes back and says, can you please update all of this? It's like, of course we can, but with Rise, it's a lot easier just because of the plug and play aspects.
So Zach, in the
yeah.
interest of time, maybe we can click on the check-in quiz and show how Rachel checked back in, and then let's continue moving forward so we have time for questions at the end too. Thank you. Yeah, because that was kind of cool too. There's animations built in, but this is another example down here, which was kind of interesting. I love the hanging lights.
Yeah.
Wings.
Yeah. So another, pre-made asset. I didn't create this. I just found it and I wiggled it back and forth. It was pretty easy to make and something I think a lot of developers could really have a lot of fun with. I mean, I just had so much fun with this project because I wasn't needing as the developer to focus on a lot of the content and that transition from instructional design to, development. I really just got to focus on the fun. I still can't believe I got to work on this. But let me go down to the check-in quiz.
I love that. She's like, it's time to check in. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that again, that whole core of personalization. Again, employees, clients were like, where's Rachel? Like, she must be a person at this company because this is so, it looks like, a person like that they would work with. So.
She looks so real. She is. She's really virtual, just like you are. Yeah. Just like we are.
Exactly.
That's great.
So you have your some questions. I think again I'm gonna just do one and see about I don't want any proprietary information to come out, but you have multiple choice. You have connectors. You have all sorts of options. And again, I'm just going to skip that, just making sure we don't do any revealing. But after the quiz, how was the quiz? So these check-ins really made the course feel personalized and people focused is the big thing. So.
That was really fun. Thank you. I'm going to jump back. Is there anything else you want to say? And other questions, please drop them in the chat for Zach, since we don't have a whole lot of time to keep going. Of course, it will open up all sorts of rabbit holes in a good way because our creativity starts going. So milk those ideas and write them down and just start looking for ideas like this, because people are doing this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, I never thought of that. So please continue to stay connected with us too. And we'll be happy to guide you through how we did what we did. Cool. Yeah. So those are just a couple examples. And we really wish we could show you how it was embedded with with the whole branding thing, but it all made sense. And I think the consistency of the character was one of the biggest things, because like we said, they thought it was a real person. They really did. We did get to meet Rachel. It's like, yeah, you did. she's in the module. And she also showed up like in orientation materials. They used the avatars in other areas of the business as the representative of that department. So it was pretty cool. So we rolled it out on time, within budget. Thank you very much. Timed with the new fall cohort in 2020. Remember, they had to be ready for the new batch of freshers coming in, as they say in India, freshers, the new new employees coming in the fall. And the implementation was part of a larger onboarding program. So remember, these modules weren't the only thing. They had a whole, 30, 60, 90 onboarding program. They welcomed people in. They came in, and during their first weeks, they went through these e-learning modules. So we had it as part of a larger plan of onboarding that really was quite robust. And I was really impressed. They had stepped it up in their onboarding, knowing that it would all be virtual, and was very well organized. And this was a good opportunity for them to package this as just a highlight of this, to kind of bring it all together. And then with those people, it really personalized it. So it was a very successful implementation. And the evaluation afterwards, we did have checks for understanding throughout. And you could see Rachel's like, time to check in. And then I think there's a couple where they're like going through a check for understanding, and she'd be like, how you doing? She kind of peek in, so we got real creative with that. Are you doing okay? And then she'd peek back out. And you can do that, just be creative. We have end of course assessments. So then the puzzles, scenarios, evaluations, those were part of the assessment, but they weren't necessarily scored. We had them, if you got some wrong, try again. And we didn't have formal final, tests or anything, because this is onboarding, right? We don't want people to feel like they passed or failed being themselves, right? Welcoming them in, but we wanted them to see if they retained the information. So having them do it in a puzzle or a scenario made it more fun and interesting. Plus it gave them some real-time feedback. And again, part of the larger experience. And this picture here of Rachel celebrating, the confetti was actually animated to go, way, welcome, like the end of the course, congratulations. And it was animated, of course. So in conclusion, just to wrap this up, so we have a couple more minutes left, the new branding moved beyond onboarding alone. So other departments, as I said, they use those avatars and characters to represent the department in other materials. It was very well received within the organization. The employees thought the avatars were real employees, so that was kind of the measure of success. And yes, it did get a Brandon Hall Award. And it did, the Brandon Hall was for new onboarding. And it was for the whole program. So the e-learning was just the highlight, but the branding that we came out with e-learning, even some logo branding for the e-learning program, became the branding throughout the company for all of onboarding. So it really went above and beyond what we thought it was going to. And that's why it was recognized for that Brandon Hall, because it was such a larger piece that was addressing a real need, which was making people feel welcome, although we had moved to a virtual environment. So it was really, I think we all felt that it not only met their goals, but exceeded them. And so we were all very excited. But as Zach said, the best part is that we had so much fun. The client was cool. We were cool with it. We were really clear with them from the very start, but said, let's have fun, within our scope and budget, but let's do some really cool stuff. And they were willing to do that. And that takes trust, because otherwise people push back because they're afraid. I'm like, don't worry. We'll get through this. And some stuff we didn't do. We had great ideas. We're like, no, we're not doing that. But we tried, we prototyped stuff, and they're like, nah. So key takeaways: be creative, include the clients if they're willing. CEO, you want to make a video? Sure. It was great. Animations, backgrounds, textures, be creative. Use real imaging and video when possible to keep it real. Illustrations are great too, but there's nothing like a real face. Okay, personalize that experience and balance the eye candy just a little bit, not too much, but enough so people get a sweet taste and it gives them just a little bit of fun, but not so that it distracts them from what you want them to do. Questions? Drop them in the chat or unmute if you would like. We do have a few minutes left here. See if I can see the chat. Okay. Yes, we did storyline blocks. Yes, we did. Oh yeah, Judy, good idea. Check articulate terms of service. They might restrict use of their characters and non-articulate. That's great. And Zach brought up a good resource. The Heroes, e-learning Heroes characters. You can download those too, but I always look at the sharing and permissions for using images, whether they're licensed or non-licensed or royalty-free when you're using characters. Yeah, thanks, Judy, for that call out.
Well, yeah, Michael, you can download them because that's possible, and because Articulate like works in PowerPoint and whatnot. But I could be wrong in this because I haven't read the terms of service for a while, but it used to be you were not supposed to use those characters except in things you were producing with Articulate software. So putting it into Word or using a product that's going to create a PDF. Because it's the flyer for the company, I think they're like, no, you're not supposed to do that.
Okay, good point. Very good call out.
So I double check that just to be sure you're safe.
Okay.
It's very tempting to take everything they have and use it everywhere. But at least in the past, and if Elizabeth Pollock's still on, might know. I recall seeing that they were restricting on that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? We're actually a minute over, so we thank you for hanging out with us. We hope this was interesting and engaging and got your creative gears turning. Stuff is bubbling up, jot it down, chat with your team, get creative. There's a lot you can do. And if you come up with some cool stuff, tell us. Share it with us. We'll share it with you, and you can share with us, and then we'll all just get better and better.
Yeah, lots of thank yous out there. I know we're about a minute or two over, but if you have time, do say thank you to Michael and Zach, and thanks everyone for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful day.